Chapter 852. When the woman called Yunxiang saw that Wei Zi was tied up and couldn't even bite her tongue to commit suicide, she rubbed Wei Zi's head and said with a face full of pity, "Wei Zi, don't hate me. This is your fate. We are tying you up now because we don't want you to hurt yourself. Think about it, if you don't listen, all of us will die. Even if you become a prostitute, it's still better than death." Wei Zi looked at everyone with a face full of despair, but all she got in return was those people turning around mercilessly. "Now that we have found a person with a water spirit root, but that person wants to, what do we do?" Someone raised this question. Everyone's gaze swept across the surrounding people one by one. Suddenly, Yunxiang's gaze landed on Qinshuo. "Just now, I seemed to feel that she used her spirit energy. There was a water spirit energy fluctuation." Qinshuo's face immediately turned pale. What nonsense are you talking about? I don't even have a water spirit root." "Whether you have a water spirit root or not, you'll know once you try." Yunxiang sneered, "My Windfire sect sacrificed a junior sister for everyone. Since your Bright Moon sect has a person with a water spirit root, do you want to selfishly stand by the side and watch? Do you want everyone to die with you?" "That's right. As long as you sacrifice yourself, you can save everyone. How can you be so selfish? You actually want everyone to die together." Qinshuo shook her head desperately. No, I don't have a water spirit root. You guys are talking nonsense. I don't want to be defiled. I don't want to become a prostitute. My senior brother is about to come and save me. I am the daughter of a Bright Moon sect elder. But how could these women let her go for their own safety? A group of people rushed up and wanted to tie her up like Wei Zi. Qinshuo was almost scared to the point of going crazy. She grabbed Wu Fangyi and Lu Ruoxuan's hands and hysterically shouted, "I don't want to become a furnace. I don't want to be defiled. Senior sister, junior sister, save me." Sob. "As long as you guys are willing to help me, I promise that after we get out, I will give the inner sect competition spot to you guys. Please save me." Sob. Lu Ruoxuan's hand was tightly gripped by Qinshuo. Her nails were embedded into her flesh. The pain almost made her cry. She couldn't help but say, "Don't be like this, my senior sister. She is pure as ice and as clean as jade. How can you let her be defiled by others? How can you be so heartless? If she doesn't want to be defiled, do you want to be defiled? Do you want us to be defiled?" Someone scolded her sarcastically. "Why don't you replace her yourself?" Lu Ruoxuan recalled the screams of the girl who was dragged away. Her body trembled and her face turned pale. She shook her head as if she was frightened. "No, I don't have a water spirit root. Then what the hell are you talking about?" After that, he dragged Qinshuo away and tied her up. "Junior sister, save me. Help me. You're the kindest, you can't do this to me, junior sister." Lu Ruoxuan's face was full of panic and tears. At this time, she finally could not help but cry out, "My senior sister is not the only one with a water spiritual root. That girl also has a pure water spiritual root aura. I beg you, can you let my senior sister go?" Sob. In a split second, everyone's line of sight followed the direction of Lu Ruoxuan's finger and looked towards Mayan, who was sitting in the corner. Chapter 853. Therefore, no one even noticed her existence in the beginning. And when she was fighting with Qinshuo, her back was facing the other people except for Lu Ruoxuan and the other two, so these girls did not even see her face clearly. Even the knife-scarred man did not put the girl in his eyes. But now, when Lu Ruoxuan speaks and points, everyone's eyes are focused on Mayan's face. Immediately, several people sucked in a breath of cold air. It was only at this moment that these people realized that the young girl sitting in the corner possessed a devastatingly beautiful appearance. Her appearance was 100 times more beautiful than the bright and beautiful Chinchoshio and the delicate and pitiful Lu Ruoxuan. Especially that pair of bottomless peach blossom eyes. The corners of his eyes seemed to be curved but not curved, and his gaze seemed to be cold but not cold. However, with just a slight movement, he could steal away a person's soul. After the amazement, several girls revealed looks of jealousy on their faces. There wasn't a girl who didn't desire a beautiful face. Therefore, when they saw someone prettier than them, they would naturally feel envious and even jealous. You also have the water spiritual root. Mu Yan slowly opens her eyes, not saying anything. She had just experienced the god-slaying lightning tribulation, and her internal organs, tendons, and veins were all injured. Although it was not fatal, it was still very uncomfortable. That was why she had been hiding in the corner and circulating her spiritual power to heal the injuries in her body. As a result, she didn't even pay attention to what was happening outside. Even when the knife-scarred man came in, she only vaguely checked on him. After confirming that he was not a threat to her, she no longer cared about him. But she didn't expect that she would become the target of public criticism when she opened her eyes again after she had mostly recovered from her injuries. Yes, she has the water spiritual root, I can testify. She has a water spirit root. If you want to catch her, then catch her. Chinchoshio was afraid that everyone would grab her again. At this time, when she heard Lu Ruoxuan say that Mu Yan has a water spiritual root, it was as if she had grabbed a life-saving straw. She immediately shouted, "Moreover, our junior sister apprentice is gifted, she can see through a person's cultivation and spiritual root attribute. If she said that this woman has a water spiritual root, then she definitely has a water spiritual root. Hurry up and tie her up so that we can be saved." Mu Yan's line of sight turns to look at Lu Ruoxuan meaningfully. This young girl seemed to have some ability. She was actually able to tell the attribute of her spirit root. In fact, Mu Yan's spirit root isn't the water spirit root, nor is it any of the 5 elements spirit roots, nor is it a variant spirit root. Instead, it was the one and only moon spiritual root. However, according to Di Mingju's words, the moon spirit root is still one of the 5 elements spirit roots in the beginning. As her cultivation increased, the number of spiritual roots in her body would increase. In the end, he even possessed a variant spiritual root and a chaotic spiritual root. Only when all the spirit roots fused together would it be the true moon spirit root. Now that her cultivation was too low, she only possessed one of the 5 elemental spiritual roots, which was the water spiritual root. However, logically speaking, ordinary people would not be able to tell the attribute of her spirit root from the circulation of her spirit power. He didn't expect Lu Ruoxuan to be able to sense it. Lu Ruoxuan comes into contact with Mayan's line of sight, and her whole body trembles. Chapter 854. Chinchoshio immediately pulls her back and intimately hugs her hand, saying, "This kind of woman is selfish, she doesn't even have the spirit of self-sacrifice, what are you begging her for? Jean, you didn't do anything wrong. Find the person with the water spiritual root, you saved all of our lives." Lu Ruoxuan is still crying, shaking her head and stammering to apologize, "I'm sorry, I really didn't mean it." The other girls are already too lazy to care about Lu Ruoxuan, and they all surround Mayan. "Do you really have the water spiritual root?" Yun Xiang asks aggressively. Mayan raises her brows, "So what if I do?" She has already used her divine sense to ask Chiu what just happened. At this time, she sees the little girl tied to the side with tears of despair on her face, and then looks at these seemingly righteous, but actually disgustingly selfish women. She can't help but smile mockingly. "Since you have the water spiritual root, why didn't you stand up just now? Didn't you hear us just ask who has the water spiritual root? That's right, how could you be so vicious?" Selfishly hiding in the corner and not making a sound, did you want to see us all fall into miserable ends? Mayan slowly stands up, arms crossed over her chest, and looks at them with a smile that isn't a smile. What does it have to do with me if you all fall into miserable ends? Why should I make a sound? You, how can you speak like that? Which sect are you from? Didn't your master teach you etiquette, justice, honor and shame? Mayan is about to laugh out loud. Etiquette, justice, honor and shame. What kind of etiquette, justice, honor and shame? Is it the etiquette, justice, honor and shame of being greedy for life and afraid of death, pushing others to sacrifice themselves? These words are like poking all the girls' Achilles' heel at once. In fact, in the beginning, they also felt guilty and uneasy. However, when they tied up Wei Zi, they thought that as long as two people were sacrificed, they could exchange for their own lives. Their hearts hardened little by little, turning ugly. Especially when there are other people accompanying them when they do bad things. They slowly start to convince themselves that they are right, and even convince themselves that doing this is for the sake of morality and justice. This is also something that can't be helped. Wu Fangyi said loudly, now that we've fallen to such a state, we should help each other and look for an opportunity to escape. The two of you were just a little bit. It's not like you'll really die, but in exchange, all of us will be able to live. Wait for our senior brother to find us. He'll naturally rescue the two of you. At that time, the two of you won't suffer too much of a loss. That's right, that's it. Wu Fangyi's words immediately made the others excited. Looking at your ragged clothes, I can tell that your sect is not very powerful. If you are really trapped here, you can only be a lowly prostitute forever. But if we ignore it, our sect will naturally be able to rescue you as well. Between a moment of innocence and eternal depravity, don't you know what to choose? This time, Mu Yan really laughed out loud, so, I have to thank you. Before her laughter died away, her eyes suddenly darkened. It said that shameless people are invincible. Today, I've finally seen this ugly face. Using the suffering and pain of others in exchange for his own safety. However, they still had to make it sound so dignified, and even wanted the victim to thank them. Chapter 855. Everyone's faces suddenly became extremely ugly. There was the resentment of having their thoughts exposed, and there was also the shame of trying to cover it up. Don't talk nonsense with her. Just tie her up and hand her over. Before he could finish, the door of the room was pushed open with a bang. The knife-scarred man and his underling strode in. 15 minutes have passed. Have you chosen the person with the water spirit root? He's chosen. Chen Xiuxiu immediately shouted, it's these two people, you quickly take them away. The knife-scarred man looked at Wei Zi who was tied up. He narrowed his eyes, took a few steps forward, and lifted Wei Zi up. Tears streamed down Wei Zi's face. She wanted to struggle, but she couldn't even speak. The knife-scarred man grabbed the position of her dantian and suddenly grabbed it, circulating his spiritual energy. Wei Zi screamed and groaned in pain. The knife-scarred man laughed out loud, not bad. A third-grade water spiritual root is considered to be quite good. I'm sure that Lord will be satisfied. As he spoke, he threw Wei Zi to one of his subordinates. He rolled his eyes. What about the other one? Following Chen Xiuxiu's finger, the knife-scarred man's line of sight falls on Mu Yan, and his pupils suddenly widen. His mouth slightly opened, and after a long while, he excitedly murmured, top quality, it's really top quality. If I offer this top quality to him, young Master Ning will definitely be satisfied. As he spoke, he walked towards Mu Yan. He reached out to check her dantian and spirit root. However, before his hand could touch Mayan's body, it was caught. The knife-scarred man raised his head and met a pair of bottomless black eyes. His mind suddenly shivered as he subconsciously sensed danger and took a step back. You! Mu Yan casually pats off the grass on her body and carelessly says, "Aren't you going to meet the guest? Let's go." Without waiting for the knife-scarred man to react, he walked straight to the door. She didn't look like someone who was going to be defiled as a cauldron, but someone who was going to be a queen. The knife-scarred man has trained so many women who have been forced into prostitution, but he has never seen one like Mayan. For a moment, he was dumbfounded. After a long while, he finally followed up with a serious expression. His gaze landed on Mu Yan without blinking, filled with vigilance. He was a veteran of hundreds of battles and had killed countless people, but the instant he met the young girl's eyes, an invisible fear surged into his heart. "Boss, what's wrong?" Seeing his serious expression, the subordinate couldn't help but approach and ask. "There's something wrong with that woman. Have you ever seen a woman become a furnace so calm? Maybe she knows that the person she needs to serve is young Master Ning and is eager to hook up with young Master Ning. You should know that even if it's just being a cultivation furnace, becoming young Master Ning's concubine is something that many people dream of." After listening to his subordinate's explanation, the knife-scarred man's heart calmed down. That's right, that was young Master Ning, the person that many people in Min Lu Jia wanted to curry favor with. This kind of lowly woman, even if she was to be his cultivation furnace, he would probably be more than happy to have her. The knife-scarred man thinks of Mu Yan's stunning appearance and her water spiritual root. Young Master Ning would certainly be very satisfied. If young Master Ning was satisfied, then his own benefits would naturally not be lacking. Thinking to this point, the knife-scarred man no longer hesitated and laughed. Mu Yan and Wei Zi were quickly taken to a room. There were many beautiful dresses arranged in the room. Chapter 856. The knife-scarred man has someone untie the ropes on Wei Zi. His eyes wander back and forth between the two, then he unhurriedly says, "If you know what's appropriate, then clean yourselves up and find some beautiful clothes to change into. After an hour, I'll come to pick you up to meet Ningxiao. If you have the ability to gain Ningxiao's favor, even if you're just a furnace, there will certainly be benefits for you. But if you dare to play tricks and make trouble for me, I'll have someone strip you naked, tie you up outside, and let all the men humiliate and trample on you. You'd better think clearly about whether you can bear the price of rebelling against our Tian Xianglu." Jia. The door is slammed shut, leaving only Mu Yan and Wei Zi in the room. Wei Zi couldn't bear it anymore, collapsing on the ground and wailing. Mu Yan, on the other hand, is very satisfied. She directly enters the wing room and happily uses the bath water prepared by Tian Xianglu to wash herself clean. Then, she finds some clothes that won't get in the way and puts them on. When she comes out, she finds that the little girl is still lying on the ground, crying so hard that she can't catch her breath. Mu Yan casually takes an apple from the coffee table and takes a bite. Then, she sits down in a languid manner. Her gaze falls on Wei Zi, who is crying in sorrow and despair. "Little girl, haven't you cried enough?" Wei Zi raises her head, revealing two eyes that are swollen like walnuts. Sobbing and sniffling, she says, "I don't want to become someone else's furnace, boo-hoo. I don't want to be defiled. I don't want to become a prostitute, boo-hoo, kacha, kacha, kacha." Wei Zi is crying her heart out, but Mu Yan is happily nibbling on the apple. Her posture as she sits on the chair is weak and boneless, but there's an indescribable magnificence that captivates people's hearts and souls. Wei Zi finally can't cry anymore. Her red and swollen eyes look at Mu Yan with confusion, and she asks in a small voice, "Sister, aren't you afraid?" "Afraid of what?" We were caught to receive guests." Wei Zi thinks of her own experience, and she can't help but burst into tears again. Will still become someone else's furnace. Mu Yan sneers, her face carrying a disdainful arrogance. In this world, the person who can force me to do things that I don't want to do hasn't been born yet. After her rebirth, she had always been a person who would destroy everything indiscriminately. Even in the Shin musician trial space, when the Tian Mo Qin wanted to control her, she would rather die than compromise. Even if Di Mingju was that strong in the beginning, he never thought of forcing her. In this world, who could force her to do something she did not want to do? Worst comes to worst, we'll all perish together. When Wei Zi heard her bold words, she was dumbfounded. While he was shocked, he also felt a hint of envy. After a while, he murmured, But this is the famous Heavenly Fragrance restaurant of Min Lu Domain. Hearing this, Mu Yan was a little interested. He casually threw the fruit core away and asked, What is the background of the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant? Why are you all so afraid when you hear about this Heavenly Fragrance restaurant? The Heavenly Fragrance restaurant is the property of the Ning family. It was opened by the Ning family's eldest young master. The Ning family is the most powerful family in the Min Lu domain. No sect or faction can contend with them. Chapter 857. Young Master Ning. Heavenly Fragrance Building. Mayan mutters, the corners of her mouth curling up into a cold arc, and her eyes are as dark as water. You guys are out of luck. When she first arrived at the Shuzhen continent, Mayan could be said to be clueless. Plus, Xiao Bao is missing, and Di Mingju is uncontactable, so she's in a bad mood. This young Master Ning actually bumps into her. He dares to make her, Mayan, a furnace. If she doesn't peel off a layer of this young Master Ning's skin, her name, Mayan, will be written upside down. Mayan still wants to get more information about the Shuzhen continent from Wei Zi's mouth, but the door is suddenly knocked open. The knife-scarred man and his men enter in a line. Seeing that Mayan has already tidied herself up, he shows a satisfied expression. Sure enough, this slut wants to take the initiative to seduce young Master Ning. But when he looks at Wei Zi, he immediately frowns in dissatisfaction. Slut, didn't I tell you to tidy yourself up? What are you doing? You really won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Come, take off this little slut's clothes for me. Don't. Wei Zi screams, desperately hiding behind Mayan, her mouth begging incessantly, I'm begging you to spare me, I'm willing to exchange. Woo, the knife-scarred man's men are about to grab her, but Mayan stops them. She says unhurriedly, didn't she say she would exchange? Still not getting out and waiting. Who do you think you are, you slut, to dare talk to Lousy like that? The knife-scarred man's men fly into a rage, slapping Mayan. However, before his hand could touch Mayan's body, he suddenly feels a huge force that flips him over. His whole body heavily hits the stone pillar, and his body twitches in pain. Mayan casually claps her hands, and looks at the knife-scarred man. Didn't I say that we can't let young Master Ning wait for too long? Still not getting out. You slut, you dare to be so arrogant. The knife-scarred man grabs the man who was about to rush over, takes a deep look at Mayan, and turns to leave. Wei Zi was a little dumbfounded. She looked at Mu Yan, then looked at the knife-scarred man and the others who were leaving. She revealed an expression of admiration. Sister, you're so amazing. Mu Yan grabs her collar and throws her directly into the water. You stink, wash yourself clean. Sure enough, she still preferred those fragrant, pretty, and gossipy girls in the Netherflame Valley. Wei Zi was so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. These people were captured and locked in a broken house. The house was full of dust and bugs, and the smell was terrible. On top of that, the girls were crying, throwing a tantrum, and being frightened. Naturally, none of them were clean. However, Wei Zi still felt extremely embarrassed to be despised by her beautiful sister. She even forgot about her current situation and hurriedly rubbed off the dirt on her body before putting on her clothes and walking out. Outside the house, the knife-scarred man held his waist and whispered in his ear, "Boss, this girl is too hot. Should we add something to her?" To avoid accidentally injuring young Master Ning. Chapter 858. What's more, our young Master Ning doesn't like docile and obedient women, but likes spicy ones. I'm really afraid that this woman isn't spicy enough, and will grovel in front of young Master Ning. Things that are delivered to your doorstep are always worthless. Hearing this, the knife-scarred man's subordinates immediately understood and let out wretched laughter. They immediately remembered the chaste women that they had sent to young Master Ning several times. It was as if they were about to kill someone. After that, the scene in the room was even more bloody and tragic. But young Master Ning was very satisfied, and instead rewarded them with many good things. Just as they were imagining the scene of young Master Ning rewarding them with treasures, the door to the room was opened. Mu Yen swaggered out of the room. Wei Zi timidly followed behind her. The knife-scarred man's gaze swept over Mu Yan's exquisite and flawless face, his eyes once again revealing a touch of amazement. Then he turned around and led them to the east end of Heavenly Fragrance Restaurant. Soon, the group stopped in front of the door. "Young Master Ning, the furnace you wanted is here. Send it in." The door creaked open, and Mu Yen and Wei Zi were directly pushed in. The incense in the room was so strong that it was suffocating, with a faint hint of sweetness. Mu Yen looked up and saw two men sitting in the room. One of them was slightly plump, with a kind face, about 30 years old. At first glance, he looked like a simple and honest young man. But as long as one saw the evil and tyrannical flash in his eyes, they would know that this person was not a good person. The other man was skinny, with a wretched appearance. Although they were also sitting, they kept nodding and bowing to the slightly plump man, trying to please him in every way possible. When they saw Mu Yen and Wei Zi coming in, the two of them looked over. When he saw Mu Yan's face, the skinny man sucked in a breath of cold air, and almost blurted out, "There's actually such a stunner in this world." The amazement and greed in his eyes almost overflowed. But very quickly, the skinny man realized something, and immediately turned to the slightly plump man with a flattering smile. "Young Master Ning is really lucky. Such a stunning beauty was actually found by your subordinates." It turned out that this slightly plump man was the young master of the Ning family, Ning Yuqing. Ning Yuqing's gaze landed on Mu Yen, his face twitching uncontrollably. That gaze made Mu Yen extremely uncomfortable. This man's gaze was too presumptuous and sinister, as if he was using his gaze to strip off her naked clothes. "Tell this young master, what is your name?" Ning Yuqing asked in a rare moment of condescension. He originally thought that Mayan would be overwhelmed by the favor, or perhaps in fear and trepidation. Unexpectedly, Mu Yen casually walked in, found a chair, and sat down as if she was strolling in her own back garden. Her sitting posture was languid and wanton, but for some reason, her entire body exuded a luxurious aura. Then, she looked at Ning Yuqing and said nonchalantly, "Who the hell are you? Do you think you deserve to know my name?" Ning Yuqing's first reaction was not anger, but shock and disbelief. He was the young master of the Ning family and had played with countless women. Even the most chaste women would cry and beg for mercy when they were presented to him. They were terrified and desperate. Chapter 859. Impudent. The skinny man on the side couldn't sit still anymore. He roared angrily, "Do you know who this young Master Ning is? How dare you speak to young Master Ning like that, you slut, are you tired of living?" Saying that, the skinny man raised his hand, about to slap Mayan. Just as the skinny man approached Mayan, his hand about to fall on the young girl's fair, flawless face. Mayan slowly raised her head, a pair of deep peach blossom eyes met the skinny man's eyes. In a split second, the skinny man couldn't help but shiver, he stiffly froze in place. Those are clearly a pair of very beautiful eyes, but he seems to see an abyss of hell, a sea of white bones and blood. A drop of cold sweat rolled down his forehead, his hands and feet seemed to be frozen, unable to move. At this time, Ning Yuqing's voice came, "Enough, Tianlei, don't shout about killing, what if you scare the little beauty, come back." Fang Tianlei's body stiffened for a moment, in the end he didn't say anything, he took a few steps back and stood behind Ning Yuqing. Looking at Mayan, his eyes were full of seriousness and wariness. Ning Yuqing didn't notice anything wrong. He slightly narrowed his eyes, reaching out to touch Mayan's face. "Little beauty, your character is hot enough, this young master likes it. This young master is in a good mood today, why don't you follow this young master back to the Ning family, you don't need to receive guests in this heavenly fragrance brothel anymore. How about it?" Mayan slapped his hand away, her face full of disgust, she said, "You like it, it's a pity I don't. Who would like a stinky and disgusting pig?" Ning Yuqing's confident smile froze in an instant. The fat on his face trembled, then twisted into a sinister anger. "Slut, don't be so shameless." Saying that, he ruthlessly slapped her. Mayan suddenly felt a gust of wind, accompanied by a scorching heat wave, blowing towards her. She didn't even think about it. Her feet tapped, the chair scraped the ground, making a squeaking sound, and flew far away. She barely dodged Ning Yuqing's attack. Ning Yuqing's face darkened when he saw that his attack had failed, but he didn't continue his attack. Instead, the corners of his mouth curled up, revealing a cruel smile. "Looks like you don't know how to be a furnace, or how to be a good pet of this young master. Tianlei, go teach her well. Let her see with her own eyes what the consequences of going against this young master are." When Fang Tianlei heard that, his gaze immediately fell on Wei Zi. Then, he revealed a sinister smile, bowed to Ning Yuqing and said, "Young Master Ning, rest assured. Tianlei will definitely let this bitch know what's good for her. Defying young Master Ning will bring her a miserable end. Young Master Ning, just wait and see. In a while, this woman will obediently crawl in front of you and beg you to pamper her." Fang Tianlei was the bastard son of a small subsidiary family of the Ning family. Because he managed to curry favor with Ning Yuqing, his status skyrocketed. Today, he had come to the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant to enjoy the water spiritual root, which was a gift from Ning Yuqing. Ning Yuqing was one of the best of the Ning family's younger generation. At such a young age, he had already reached the 7th stage of fasting. In order to prepare for the Shuzhen continent's grand event, the sect selection, the Ning family had been working hard to provide him with all kinds of cultivation resources, just so that he could reach the 8th stage of fasting as soon as possible. Chapter 860. In order to speed up his cultivation, he has been taking a lot of fire elixirs. But no matter how good the elixirs are, they all have side effects. Taking too many in a short period of time will cause damage to his meridians and dantian. In order to better absorb the fire elixirs, Ning Yuqing came up with a different method. It was to defile those talented female cultivators with water spiritual roots, using them as cultivation cauldrons to replenish yang energy. At the same time, the fire poison in his body will be transferred to these female cultivators. It was not hard to imagine how miserable the fate of these female cultivators with water spiritual roots who were defiled by Ning Yuqing would be. In this period of time, the number of female cultivators that Ning Yuqing has defiled can be said to be countless. The fire poison in his body is also almost completely removed. So this time, when he came to Heavenly Fragrance Brothel to choose female cultivators, he brought Fang Tianlei along. To put it nicely, he wanted to let him enjoy it together. But Ning Yuqing did not expect that he would meet such a stunning beauty like Mu Yan, so much that he could not bear to waste her. When Wei Zi saw Fang Tianlei coming over, she was scared out of her wits. She wanted to run towards Mu Yan, but her knees gave way and she fell to the ground. "No, don't come over. Woo woo woo." No, Fang Tianlei did not care about her begging and crying. He rushed over and grabbed her clothes, and tore them. With a ripping sound, the outer clothes were torn, revealing the smooth skin underneath. Fang Tianlei swallowed, his eyes filled with violence and greed. Although he also wanted to taste that stunning beauty, it was obvious that eldest young Master Ning had his eyes on her. He could not eat meat, but drinking some soup was not bad. What's more, although this little girl looked young and immature, her skin was as smooth as ice, and as smooth as jade, making people drool. If he could leave green and purple marks on her skin, when Fang Tianlei thought of that scene, he felt his lower abdomen tighten, and with a roar, he threw Wei Zi to the ground. "No! Don't touch me! Save me, sister, save me!" Fang Tianlei laughed sinisterly. "Ah, scream all you want, the louder you scream, the more fun I will have. Later, when you are under me, make sure to scream even more." Saying that, his evil claws reached for Wei Zi's underwear. Seeing that her clothes were about to be ripped off, her chastity would be lost. Wei Zi shed tears of despair. However, in the next moment, Fang Tianlei's blood-curdling scream suddenly rang in his ears. Then, Wei Zi felt her body lighten, and the demon that was pressing down on her disappeared. She was pulled up from the ground and a robe was gently draped over her shoulders. Wei Zi raised her head in a daze and looked at the beautiful girl standing beside her with teary eyes. Realizing that she was saved, Wei Zi could no longer hold it in and burst into tears. "What's the use of crying?" Mu Yan presses on the top of her head. Her tone is unkind, but her movements are very gentle. "To deal with this kind of scum who is worse than pigs and dogs, you should directly cripple her." Fang Tianlei cuts a sorry figure as he climbs up from the ground. His chin is still aching from Mayan's kick. He glanced at Ning Yuqing and saw that Ning Yuqing was calmly watching from the side, as if he had no intention of interfering. His face instantly turned ferocious and he sneered, "Little whore, do you really think I can't beat you? Just now, I was just showing mercy to the fairer sex. Since you don't know what's good for you time and time again, don't blame me." Chapter 861. Fang Tianlei is startled, but he doesn't have time to react. There's a sudden flash in front of him, followed by a cracking sound in his ears, followed by an indescribable heart-tearing pain in his lower body. "Aw, aw, aw!" Fang Tianlei screams, clutching his crotch and collapsing. The intense pain causes him to roll on the ground, cold sweat dripping from his forehead. You! He roars like a trapped beast, all the spiritual power in his body surging. He's going to give Mu Yan a fatal blow. However, without waiting for him to launch his attack, Mu Yan has already lifted her foot, casually stepping on Fang Tianlei's lower body. Crack! Crack! The sound of bones breaking one after another makes Fang Tianlei's whole body seem to stop. His body keeps twitching. The hand that was originally covering his crotch hangs down, from the wrist down, including the bones of his fingers and palms, they're all shattered. Not to mention his descendant root, this time, it's really and truly become a waste. Fang Tianlei's eyes are wide open, his mouth is wide open, as if he wants to scream, but not a single sound comes out. Like a stranded fish on the verge of death, he can't even breathe. Mu Yan looks down at Fang Tianlei's frightened expression, slowly smiling. Is it fun to trample on women? Is it fun to listen to women scream and beg for mercy? Fang Tianlei trembles, his throat making a cracking sound. Spare spare my life. Heh, since it's so fun, then go to hell and play with those female ghosts that died because of you. As soon as she says that, a long sword appears in Mu Yan's hand. The sword flashes, piercing Feng Tianlei's heart without hesitation. Feng Tianlei doesn't even have a chance to make a sound, his eyes roll back, and he dies. The room falls into a deathly silence. Wei Zi even forgets to cry, her red and swollen eyes look at Mu Yan, then at the breathless Feng Tianlei, her mouth gaping, unable to make a sound. Clap clap clap. The room suddenly resounds with a rhythmic applause. Mu Yan turns to look, only to see that Ning Yuqing isn't angry, instead he's applauding with an appreciative smile. But those squinting eyes reveal a greedy and evil light. He's actually at the 9th stage of the body refining realm. No wonder he dares to be so arrogant. Ning Yuqing walked towards Mu Yan step by step, his eyes moving from her picturesque face, to her slender neck, to her curvaceous body. The lust in his eyes was overflowing. Very good, very good. This young master is getting more and more satisfied with you. As Ning Yuqing spoke, he made a grabbing motion in the air, and the wine on the table appeared in his hand. He smiles in a cultured and refined manner, handing the glass of wine to Mu Yan. This young master will give you another chance. Drink this glass of wine and obediently crawl over to serve this young master. This young master guarantees that even if you become a human cauldron, I will spare your life. Moreover, from now on, I will let you enjoy endless glory, splendor, and wealth. This cup of wine was the specialty of the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant. It had an aphrodisiac effect, which could make a chastity girl obedient. However, Ning Yuqing was usually unwilling to use it. This was because he enjoyed the sight of those women screaming miserably and begging for mercy under his abuse. However, seeing Mayan today, it makes all the blood in his body boil. Not only did this girl have a stunning appearance, but she was also extremely talented. Chapter 862. Ning Yuqing felt that if he had a taste of such a beauty, he would not be interested in those ordinary women anymore. It would be a pity if he accidentally spoiled her. A low laugh came out from Mu Yan's mouth. Following that, a pair of slender, smooth, and well-defined hands grasped the blue and white porcelain cup and took the wine cup. Ning Yuqing looked at the pair of beautiful eyes that looked like they were carved by the gods. He could not help but swallow his saliva, his chest felt like it was on fire. He could not wait to pounce on her and ravage her. But at the same time, he felt an indescribable satisfaction in his heart. As expected, no matter how ruthless this woman was, in front of him, young Master Ning, she would obediently listen to him. Mu Yan took the wine cup and twirled it in her hand, a bright smile appeared on her face. Young Master Ning, how many women have you given this wine to? Those ordinary women are not worthy of this young master's wine. Ning Yuqing showed a disdainful smile. Step by step he walked closer to Mu Yan. Towards other women, this young master would casually play with them and throw them away, or give them to those lowly servants or customers of Heavenly Fragrance brothel. But beauty, you are different. This young master cannot bear to hurt you, so I gave you this cup of wine. That is to say, you have defiled a lot of women. Ha! In this Min Lu Jia, as long as it is a woman this young master wants to play with, there is no woman I can't get. Mu Yan slowly raised her head, her gaze from the wine cup to Ning Yuqing's face. Looks like, from the beginning, I decided to take your dog lives. It was not a bad decision. Ning Yuqing was startled, he did not react. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and felt a sharp pain in his tongue and teeth. A huge wine cup, along with the mixed wine inside, was sent into his mouth. Then, Mu Yan raised her leg and kicked his lower abdomen. Ning Yuqing's entire body was sent flying, crashing heavily into a pillar. The violent impact caused the wine cup in his mouth to shatter, cutting his tongue and oral cavity. All of a sudden, Ning Yuqing let out a painful howl, and blood flowed out from his mouth and teeth. Outside the room, the knife-scarred man and his men heard the commotion inside. They could not help but be speechless. I did not expect this girl to be so ruthless. This commotion is even louder than that chaste woman who was played to death last time. The louder the commotion, the more suffering she will suffer. Young Master Ning loves to abuse these kinds of girls. Later when we go in, that woman might already be in a terrible state. Such a beauty, it is such a pity, who asked her to have such bad luck. Inside the room, Ning Yuqing crawled up from the ground with difficulty. This time, there was no smile on his face, only shock and malevolent resentment remained. You slut, how dare you attack this young master? As he spoke, blood continued to gush out of his mouth, causing his voice to become unclear. Ning Yuqing spat out the blood in his mouth and stared fixedly at Mu Yan. In the next moment, a powerful spiritual energy surged out from his body. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Do you really think that you can be arrogant in front of this young master just because you're at the 9th stage of body refining? He clenched his right hand into a fist and channeled his spiritual power. Immediately, a blazing flame appeared on his fist. This young master will let you know the consequences of resisting me. The air in the room seemed to be boiling hot in an instant. Chapter 863. The rolling waves of air have already rushed towards Mayan, blowing her clothes and hair up. Mu Yan's eyes narrow, she raises her hand, and a grayish-black zither appears in her hand. She plucks the strings lightly, and a melodious melody immediately comes out. Ning Yuqing sneers, What? Are you afraid now? You want to flirt with this young master and enjoy yourself. But it's too late. Mu Yan holds the zither with one hand, casually plucking the strings as if playing a pipe. Hearing this, she chuckles. Young Master Ning doesn't want to hear it. This young master wants to hear a slut like you crying and begging for mercy under me. As soon as his voice falls, Ning Yuqing's fist suddenly explodes. The turbulent air waves cause the furniture in the room to crash to the ground. Wei Zi, who is hiding in the corner, is almost blown away. She clings to a nearby pillar to stabilize herself. Even so, her hair and clothes still felt like they were being roasted by the flames. Her skin is burning, and she can't help but let out a low moan. Wei Zi, who was just swept away by the air waves, is already like this, not to mention Mu Yan, who was directly hit by the raging flame fist. Ning Yuqing slowly withdraws his fist, his face showing a proud and cruel expression. However, the scene in front of him makes him dumbfounded. The girl in front of him is still standing, her hands lightly plucking the strings of the zither. That expression, that posture, even that movement, there is not the slightest change. Languid, carefree, as if she doesn't care about anything. This is impossible. Ning Yuqing can't help but roar. Even his grandfather praised his raging flame fist to be powerful. Among the cultivators of the same cultivation level in Min Lu Jia, which one of them is not prepared to face his raging flame fist with great difficulty? But this woman is only at the 9th stage of body refining. How could she so easily deal with it? Ning Yuqing's gaze suddenly falls on the zither. Following the sound of the zither, there is a faint white light emitting from the zither. It envelopes Mu Yan and the zither together. Divine hands weave, which could even barely block a blow from the god-slaying tribulation. How could it be unable to block a mere level 7 fasting, roaring flame fist? It was that ancient zither. There was something strange about that zither. Ning Yuqing's eyes lit up. His mind turns at lightning speed, pretending to be shocked and in disbelief to divert Mayan's attention. Just as Mu Yan was about to speak, he suddenly roared and pounced over, snatching the zither from Mu Yan's hands. Ha ha ha, little bitch, you can be so arrogant because of this zither of yours, right? Now that you don't have this zither, what are you going to do? Mu Yan is really surprised for a moment. Because Ning Yuqing's action just now was very fast, she didn't expect that Ning Yuqing would actually snatch the Tian Mo Qin, so she didn't have time to react. Ning Yuqing looked at the Tian Mo Qin in his hand. He had just witnessed how powerful the Tian Mo Qin was. If it could even block his raging flame fist, then it would be a rare treasure. It might even be a 4th-grade spirit artifact or above. In the cultivation continent, spiritual tools are divided into 9 grades. Above spirit artifacts were divine artifacts. However, in the cultivation continent, divine artifacts were treasures that one could only dream of but not obtain. Above the divine artifacts were the heavenly divine artifacts, the divine king artifacts, the sacred ancestral artifacts, and even the heavenly divine artifacts. Chapter 864. Min Lu Jia is the weakest region in the Shuzhen continent. Here, 3rd grade and above spirit tools are priceless, enough to help a family move unhindered. So when he thinks that the zither in his hand might be a 4th-grade spirit tool, Ning Yuqing's eyes shine with greed. With a 4th-grade spirit tool, his chances of getting a good result in the sect selection will be even higher. However, when he tries to pluck the strings, he only hears an ear-piercing noise, nothing else. Ning Yuqing doesn't believe it, he even infuses his spiritual power into it. But a broken zither is a broken zither, there is no change, only that ear-piercing noise, as if mocking his stupidity. How is it? Have you played enough? Do you need me to teach you? He doesn't know when, but the girl's clear laughter comes close. Ning Yuqing is startled, and immediately becomes furious. What's so strange about this spirit tool? If you obediently tell me, this young master may spare your life. Mu Yan's mouth slowly curls up, a bright smile blooming on her snow-white face. You want to know? Then I'll show you now. As soon as she says that, Mu Yan crooks her finger. The zither in Ning Yuqing's arms moves up and down on its own, producing a melodious music. Along with the music, sharp air blades scatter in all directions. Zither sound blade, level 4 skill, activate. Ah! Ning Yuqing is so close, how can he avoid it? In a split second, he feels a sharp pain in his face, chest and abdomen. The Tian Mo Qin in his arms has already flown up to the sky, returning to Mu Yan's hand. Mu Yan has just received the Tian Mo Qin when she hears Qi Huang's annoying voice. Heh, even the most precious treasures in the Shuzhen continent are not worthy to carry this sage's shoes. This idiot, he thinks that the Tian Mo Qin is only a 4th-grade spirit tool, he should just die. Mu Yan's expression stiffens, she stops her attack on Ning Yuqing. Qi Huang, you're awake. Yes. This sage consumed his primordial spirit to activate, divine weaves the heavens, high-level defense, allowing you to escape the fatal blow of the god-slaying tribulation. Don't forget this sovereign's kindness. The youngster's voice carries an arrogance that's as it should be, and it's asking for a beating as it rings in Mayan's ears. Mu Yan, however, chuckles in a low voice, temporarily breaching the contract on the battlefield, and even releasing my Xiao Bao in a moment of life and death crisis. Qi Huang, you actually want me to not forget your kindness. In the space, Qi Huang raises his eyes and looks at the phantom formed by Mu Yan's spiritual form. Meeting that pair of smiling yet not smiling peach blossom eyes, he suddenly feels his scalp tighten, and he unconsciously takes a step back. June Mayan, I'm telling you, Ben Zun did that in order to save you. You better not act recklessly. Before Qi Huang could finish speaking, Mayan's hand has already stroked one of the strings. At the very end of the string, there's a sudden pluck. Ouch! Qi Huang screams miserably, and his primordial spirit tumbles to the ground, rolling around, ha 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 ha. Jun Mayan, you bastard. Ha 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 ha. You actually dare to do this to me. Ha 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 ha. I won't let you go. Ha 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 ha. I won't let you off. Ha 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 ha. Chapter 865. The youth on the grass laughs until his clothes and hair are disheveled, beads of water seeping out of his flowing phoenix eyes. His whole person looks like he's just been ravaged, beautiful and alluring, making people feel pity for him. Mayan's hand finally stops plucking the strings, slowly moving in front of Chi Huang. Chi Huang's eyes are red, his whole person appearing delicate and pitiful. Seeing her approach, he glares at her with grief and indignation. Jun Mayan, you bastard, this hatred, Ben Zun will definitely take revenge. Mayan has a smile that isn't a smile, her fingers pressing on the end of the strings. Are you sure? Chi Huang instantly wilts. He shrinks his body, purses his lips, and angrily stops talking. Just then, the melodious sound of the zither rings out again. Chi Huang only feels a shiver run through his body. But this time, it's not a laughter that wants to take his life. Instead, an indescribable refreshment and strength circulates through his whole body, making him feel so comfortable that he almost sighs. The next moment, the girl's soft voice rings in his ears, but in any case, thank you this time, Chi Huang. Thank you for letting me live, and thank you for not letting me and Xiao Bao be separated by life and death. Chi Huang stares blankly. He jerks his head up, only to find that Mayan's figure is no longer in the space. He stretches out his hand and looks at his palm. The palm that was originally so transparent that it was almost invisible has solidified quite a bit at this time. His whole body is surging with a power that doesn't belong to him, but it's so warm, so gentle. Chi Huang blankly stares at his palm for a while. Suddenly, he flips over and throws himself on the grass. He rolls several times on the grass before burying his face in the ground. In a muffled voice, he says to himself, "Don't think that Ben Zun won't retaliate like this, humph." Mayan's divine sense leaves the space, and her 5 fingers play on the strings, her heart very satisfied. Although the Tian Mo Qin hasn't been repaired or upgraded after going through the god-slaying calamity this time, the connection between her and the Tian Mo Qin has deepened a bit. Now, she can already control Chi Huang's senses with the strings. She can also shield Chi Huang's senses during battle. In other words, even if Chi Huang's soul leaves the Tian Mo Qin, he will no longer be affected by her stroking the strings. But if she wants to punish or help Chi Huang, she can achieve it through different spiritual power control and playing. The corner of Mu Yan's mouth hooks up into a wicked smile. "Little guy, let's see if you still dare to break the contract and act recklessly in the future." But as soon as he raised his head, the smile on his face disappeared. Because she discovered that in the instant that she was punishing Chi Huang, that grandson Ning Yuqing had actually escaped. The fact that Ning Yuqing had run away meant that he had alerted the entire Heavenly Fragrance restaurant. Sure enough, a moment later, she heard Ning Yuqing screaming like a pig being slaughtered, "Help! Help! Someone wants to kill this young master." Mu Yan sneered. Her figure flashed and appeared outside the door. Trying to escape. Calling for help. Then this young lady will clean up this filthy Heavenly Fragrance restaurant in one go. The knife-scarred man and his subordinates were standing guard not far from the house. It wasn't that they didn't notice the commotion inside, as well as the scorching heat waves. But he just looks at each other and smiles wretchedly, his face filled with sympathy and pity for Mayan. It seemed that this hot chick did have some ability. She actually made young Master Ning use his raging flame fist. It's just a pity that her ice skin and jade bones have already been burned by young Master Ning's raging flame fist. Young Master Ning really doesn't know how to have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. Chapter 866. He vaguely shouts, "Help, help, that crazy woman wants to kill me. Quickly, quickly inform the guards of the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant." When they see clearly who this bloodied person is, the knife-scarred man and his men are completely dumbfounded. Young Ning, eldest young master. How could he be injured like this? The sound of movement comes from inside the room. Ning Yuqing is so scared that he pisses his pants. He frantically pushes away the knife-scarred man and his men to escape. Stop her for this young master. Ah, help. Before the knife-scarred man can react, he sees a slender and pretty figure slowly walking out of the room. She is holding an old zither in her hands. Her small picturesque face has a lazy and faint smile. She slowly walks over, the wind ruffling her clothes, like a fairy descending to the mortal world. The knife-scarred man and his men are simply dumbfounded. What is going on? You, what are you? Before the knife-scarred man can finish his words, Mayan's fingers are already plucking the zither strings. The airflow fluctuates, and an invisible blade breaks through the air. The knife-scarred man only feels a pain in his chest, his body swaying, and he has already softly fallen down. Mayan says with a smile that isn't a smile, "Just now, didn't you say that you want me to be obedient? What are you going to do to me if I'm not obedient? You, who are you?" The knife-scarred man's men look at the dead body of their boss. Then they look at the girl's beautiful face, her bright smile, and there is no longer a trace of charming and gentle desire in their hearts, only full of fear. Do you know that this is the Ning family's property? The men's stammering voice is filled with infinite fear, unable to complete their story. Mayan can't listen anymore, her hands suddenly pluck the zither strings. This time, it's not just one or two swords that fly out, but hundreds and thousands. These scum who were just fiercely abusing and defiling young girls, at this moment, don't even have the chance to make a sound, as the sound blades penetrate them, turning them into a hornet's nest. Mayan turns her wrist, the Tian Mo Chin that she was originally holding turns around, turning into 7 colored long swords, and then combine into one, becoming the crystal clear, 7 absolute swords, falling into her palm. The tip of her sword was pointed to the ground, and the corners of her mouth curled up into a faint smile. Step by step, she chased after Ning Yuqing. If the people of Hellflame Valley were here and saw Mayan's expression, they would know that everyone in Heavenly Fragrance House is going to be out of luck. However, who told them to be so blind as to bump into Mu Yen when she was in a bad mood? They deserve to be annihilated. In the house behind her, Wei Zi hid in the doorway, looking at the direction Mu Yen left in a daze, her eyes full of awe and worship. How could there be such a handsome and powerful woman in this world? If one day, she could be half as powerful as this little sister, how great would that be? The Heavenly Fragrant restaurant had been in business for several decades, but there had never been a day where it was in such a mess and in such a miserable state. The guests who had been intimate and having fun inside had long since been scared out of their wits and had disappeared without a trace. On the walkway outside the room, there were dead, injured, and dying bodies lying everywhere. These corpses were basically the Heavenly Fragrant restaurant's guards, pimps, and even Ning Yuqing's personal guards. The innocent prostitutes were frightened when they saw such a bloody massacre. Chapter 867. Ning Yuqing's body was covered in blood, his hair was a mess, and he was in a sorry state. He was protected by the guards of Heavenly Fragrance restaurant and his own guards, but there was not a shred of peace on his face, only fear. Trash! Trash! There were so many of them, but they couldn't even stop a woman. There were more than 100 people in Heavenly Fragrance restaurant, but they couldn't stop a mere girl. But when he thought of the terrifying zither in that woman's hands, all of Ning Yuqing's anger and hatred were replaced by fear. That madwoman, she doesn't want to live. Ning Yuqing gritted his teeth and cursed, is there still no news from the people we sent to inform the Ning family? The guard next to him was about to answer, when a slender figure suddenly appeared from a corner not far away. The girl was wearing a lake blue long dress, her eyebrows were like snow, and her face was beautiful. When she slowly walked over, it was like a tranquil and beautiful ancient painting. However, none of the people present were shaken when they saw this painting. Instead, they were filled with terror. When Ning Yuqing saw the person, his legs uncontrollably trembled, extreme fear caused the fat on his face to tremble. "Slut, you, don't go too far, I am the young master of the Ning family. If you kill me, the Ning family will not let you off." Ning Yuqing shouted fiercely, but in the end, he couldn't help but beg for mercy. If you are willing to let me go, I promise not to pursue the matter, and I will make the Ning family send compensation." The girl in front of him tilted her head, as if she was considering, send compensation. Ning Yuqing's heart was in his throat. I promise that the compensation will be to your satisfaction." Mu Yan slowly blooms into a smile. What a pity, compared to an apology, I want more, your life. As soon as she finished speaking, her figure suddenly disappeared. The next moment, the cold tip of the sword pointed straight at Ning Yuqing. The wind howled, killing intent filled the sky. "Ah!" Ning Yuqing screamed, desperately grabbing a guard beside him to block in front of him. The long sword pierced through the guard's flesh, killing him instantly. But the tip of the sword still cut through Ning Yuqing's clothes, and cut through his flesh. The bone-chilling cold seeped into his blood vessels, scaring him out of his wits. Mu Yan flew back to where she was standing and looked at Ning Yuqing, who was unharmed. She said regretfully, "He is still alive, young Master Ning is really lucky." Ning Yuqing was trembling all over, and at this moment, he saw Wei Zi hiding in a corner. He immediately shouted excitedly, "Take that woman, quick, take that woman as a hostage." "Wei Zi," the guard beside him shouted, "Wei Zi." Wei Zi screamed, screaming, "Wei Zi, Wei Zi." Wei Zi was shocked. The guard was moved, but Wei Zi was shocked. The long sword in his hand changes back into the Tian Mo Qin in a flash. The sound of the zither resounds, and the blade of the sword flies. The guard was in midair and couldn't even dodge. In an instant, he was riddled with holes. Mu Yan leaps up, grabs Wei Zi's collar, and pulls her to her side. "Wei Zi Wei, and Mu, of Mu, yes, Qing, Mu, of, yet." Mu Yan didn't care about her, and looked at Ning Yuqing coldly. Ning Yuqing almost fainted in fright when he saw her piercing glare. Chapter 868. This time, everyone's eyes were attracted. They saw a few girls in ragged clothes, trying to escape from the corridor behind Ning Yuqing. But one of them accidentally tripped and made a sound, which was noticed by Ning Yuqing. These people, coincidentally, were Lu Ruoxuan and the others who were locked up in the house with Mu Yan. The commotion in Heavenly Fragrance Brothel was so loud that even Lu Ruoxuan and the others who were locked up in the house heard it. In order to deal with Mu Yan, the people guarding them also left. So Lu Ruoxuan and the others secretly broke the door lock, wanting to escape. But they did not expect that they would be discovered by Ning Yuqing just as they were about to escape. And the one who accidentally tripped and made a sound was Qin Xiuxiu, the one who caused the most trouble. When the Madam of Heavenly Fragrance Brothel next to Ning Yuqing saw this group of people, her originally panicked face turned into a look of joy. "Young Master Ning, these people were captured together with that demoness." Ning Yuqing's eyes lit up, and immediately waved his hand to get the group of people arrested. His face finally revealed a look of relief. This crazy woman would care about the life and death of that little girl. Naturally she would not leave these women to die. And he only needed to delay until the Ning family arrived, then this crazy woman would be at his mercy. That powerful zither would naturally belong to him. Until now, Ning Yuqing still believed that the reason why Mu Yan was so powerful was because of the zither in her hands. But the secret of the zither must be dug out from this crazy woman's mouth. Don't move. Ning Yuqing suddenly grabbed Qin Xiuxiu's neck and roared at Mu Yan, "If you move again, I will kill these women." Mu Yan's footsteps really stopped. But it was different from the anger and unwillingness that Ning Yuqing had imagined. The girl who was standing not far away just crossed her arms, looking at them with a smile that was not a smile. "If you want to kill them, just kill them. What does it have to do with me?" Ning Yuqing's face suddenly froze. She actually did not care about the life and death of these women. Qin Xiuxiu was so scared that her face turned pale, and she screamed, "How can you do this? Quickly save me, save me. I don't want to die." Ning Yuqing's guards also placed their weapons on the necks of the other women, and looked at Mu Yan threateningly. These women felt the pain and fear of the blades cutting through the skin on their necks. They were scared out of their wits. Lu Ruoxuan cried, "Miss, please save us. Are you really going to watch us die?" Mayan sneers, "Save you? Why? Do I know you? What do you mean? In any case, we were captured together and have gone through thick and thin together. How can you be so heartless and selfish and leave us in the lurch? Miss, we are in the same boat. Saving a life is better than building a 7-storied pagoda. I beg you to be kind. My parents and brothers are still waiting for me to go back." Sob, sob, sob. "I don't want to die. I'm only 17. Please spare me." The girls who were caught began to cry. Most of them were only in their teens or 20s. They looked young and pitiful, and their cries were even more pitiful. Even those stone-hearted guards would feel a bit of pity when they saw such a young girl crying. Of course, they wouldn't show any mercy when it was time to act. Chapter 869. Ning Yuqing shouted, "Miss, I don't know who you are, but I have offended you today. I, young Master Ning, have eyes but failed to see. I am willing to apologize to you. As long as you are willing to let bygones be bygones, I promise that I will personally escort you out of Heavenly Fragrance Brothel. From now on, the Ning family in Heavenly Fragrance Brothel will not pursue this matter." Saying that, he bowed very sincerely. "Even if I have offended you, I did not do anything to you. Please be magnanimous and spare me and Heavenly Fragrance Brothel." Qin Xiuxiu and the others' eyes lit up at his words. If young Master Ning really could escort them out of Heavenly Fragrance Brothel and let bygones be bygones, then they wouldn't have to worry about being defiled and humiliated in the future. Qin Xiuxiu said agitatedly, Did you hear that? Young Master Ning has already apologized to you. Can't you be magnanimous and magnanimous?" Mayan's mouth hooked up in a mocking smile. "No. Today, I will take young Master Ning's life." If she hadn't seen Ning Yuqing's true face with her own eyes, she would have thought that there was only a small conflict between them. Ning Yuqing's face twisted. He was driven mad with anger. He had already lowered himself to this extent, but this woman still wouldn't let him go. "You!" Qin Xiuxiu and the others almost fainted from anger. Yun Xiang couldn't help but say agitatedly, "How can you be so vicious? Do you really want to see us all die? We are in the same boat, we should help each other, but you are going to leave us in the lurch. Aren't you afraid of retribution in the future?" Suddenly, her eyes fell on Wei Zi, who was not far away. Seeing Wei Zi hiding behind Mu Yan, she immediately became excited. "Wei Zi, junior sister, quickly ask this woman to save us. We are both pitiful women who share the same fate. I'm also your senior sister. Are you going to watch me die?" Wei Zi instinctively shrank back, but her usually obedient and timid face slowly showed intense anger. She took a few deep breaths, then suddenly shouted, You are too shameless. Back then, for the sake of your own survival, you sent me and this big sister out to be defiled by others. You have the face to say that you are in the same boat. What right do you have to ask big sister to save you? You are the most selfish and shameless. You want me to save you now, but when you tie me up and push me out to be violated by others, to be used as a cultivation vessel, have you ever thought about the fact that I'm your junior apprentice sister? I don't have a heartless senior sister like you. Even if you die today, you deserve it. You deserve it. None of you have the right to blame little Missy. Woo 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 woo. After Wei Zi finished shouting, she couldn't help but burst into tears. Her tears were heart-wrenching. It was as if all the fear, grievance, and despair he had suffered for so long had finally erupted at this moment. Mu Yan couldn't help but shake her head. This little girl was too good at crying. It was as if she was made of water. But Yun Xiang was scolded by Wei Zi's words until her face turned red to her ears, unable to say a word for a long time. The prostitutes of the Heavenly Fragrance building, who are watching the fight from the sidelines, originally thought that these girls were pitiful and that Mayan had a heart of stone. When they heard Wei Zi's complaint, all of them revealed expressions of indignation and sympathy. Chapter 870. You clearly pushed her out as a scapegoat, and now you still have the face to ask for help. Even if I'm a shameless whore, I wouldn't do such a disgusting thing. Hee, these righteous women look down on us prostitutes, but under their sanctimonious faces, they are actually dirtier than us. If this girl really can destroy Heavenly Fragrance Brothel, we can be saved. The words of Heavenly Fragrance Brothel's prostitutes reach Lu Ruoxuan's ears, her pretty face flushes red. Her face is filled with guilt, panic and grievance. Girl, I'm sorry, I really didn't mean it at that time. I was just too afraid that senior sister would be hurt, so I blurted out that you have water spiritual roots. I'm sorry, if you want to hate someone, just hate me, okay? I beg you to save my senior sister, and these innocent people. That's right, girl, at that time we were sorry, but we only wanted to save ourselves. In a moment, we are willing to personally kowtow to you to apologize, and give you generous gifts. We only beg you to save us. Boo-hoo, big sister, I really know that I was wrong, I don't want to die. I beg you to save us. Lu Ruoxuan's words are lovely and touching, and full of sincerity. The others are even more heartbroken, they would be very pitiful. But Mayan sneers inwardly. What she hates the most in her life is being threatened, especially by moral coercion. Ning Yuqing sees that her face is as calm as water, and thinks that she has finally softened. He grins and says, Girl, I think this matter should end here, let's write it off. He hasn't even finished the last word, what? Mayan's figure suddenly disappears. The next moment, Ning Yuqing feels a stream of water hitting his face, covering his head. Followed by a bone-chilling cold. Ning Yuqing quickly revolves the spiritual power in his body to resist, a flame erupts from his hand. Chen Xiuxiu, who is being choked by his throat, screams. But it's still a step too late, the water ball covering his head instantly turns into ice. Mayan's figure descends from the sky, the long sword in her hand lightly slashes at the frozen head. A crisp sound is heard. Ning Yuqing's head falls from his neck, rolling to the ground and smashing into pieces. Yes, his entire head was smashed into pieces. After a while, the ice crystals melted, and a sticky liquid spread on the ground. Ning Yuqing's headless body swayed, and finally fell to the ground with a thud. Ah! The girls who were caught screamed in terror. You killed young Master Ning. You actually killed young Master Ning. The guards of the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant and the Ning family roared in anger. Some of them fled, while others attacked. Mu Yan doesn't care about the people who are running away. However, those who attacked her were all killed by her at the fastest speed. In just a few short breaths of time, the noisy Heavenly Fragrance restaurant turned silent. However, this silence was mixed with countless fresh blood, corpses, and terror. Mu Yan flips her wrist and the 7 Absolutes sword dissipates in the air. She couldn't be bothered to take another look at this damned place and turned around to leave. Wait a minute. An angry voice called out to Mu Yan, who was about to leave. Mu Yan turns around and sees Lu Ruoxuan glaring at her, her small face flushed red. Chapter 871. Mu Yan looks down at Qinshouxiu. She sees that her throat and chin are burned, but it's not life-threatening. It's just that she can't speak for a while. Seeing Mu Yan looking at her, Qinshouxiu fiercely glares at her. Her eyes are filled with extreme resentment, as if she wants to tear her apart. Mu Yan sneers, "What does it have to do with me whether she dies or not? You, how can you say that?" Lu Ruoxuan trembles with anger. "Even if we really let you down before, we've already apologized to you. Why are you still so heartless? Why can't you save us? What's more, young Master Ning only offended you, he didn't really do anything to you. He simply doesn't deserve to die. Why are you so aggressive, insisting on killing him? You're really too vicious." Lu Ruoxuan's words aroused the resentment of the other girls in a split second. Each and every one of them excitedly point at Mu Yan and curse. They scold her for being heartless and vicious, scold her for having no morality, scold her for not saving others, and some even scold her for being ungrateful. That's because after they escaped from Tian Xianglu, they plan to come back to save her and Wei Zi. They have morality in their hearts, but Mu Yan watches them die without saving them. Mu Yan is simply amused by this group of shameless women. But she has always followed the principle of not speaking if she can beat them, and not letting them live if she can kill them. So, seeing these selfish women denouncing her after taking an inch, Mu Yan turns her wrist to take out the Tian and Mo Qin. But before she can move, a woman suddenly rushes out from the corner, and shouts at Lu Ruoxuan and the others, "You sanctimonious people know nothing. You actually say that Ning Yuqing doesn't deserve to die. Have you ever been defiled by him? Have you ever had your dantian and meridians broken by him as a human furnace? Have you ever been thrown to a group of men to be humiliated, unable to live and unable to die? You don't know anything, you haven't experienced anything, and you actually have the nerve to say that he doesn't deserve to die. He doesn't deserve to die, and the ones who deserve to die are you." Then, 2, 3, 4, most of the prostitutes of Tian Xianglu rush out. Tian Xianglu's business has always been excellent, and the biggest reason is that the quality of the women here is particularly high. Not only did it refer to one's appearance and figure, but it also referred to one's talent, cultivation, upbringing, and manner of speaking. But who would be willing to be a prostitute who was loved by thousands and praised by tens of thousands of people if she was truly talented and cultured? Therefore, most of these women were pitiful people who had been forced into prostitution. There were even many who had resisted with all their might, only to end up with a fate worse than death. Day after day, they were locked up in the Heavenly Fragrant restaurant to receive customers. They were humiliated, spurned, and humiliated. He could no longer return to his previous life. He had long since despaired of the future and submitted to the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. However, under the surface of submission, there was a deep hatred that seeped into his bones. Now, seeing Mu Yan killing the entire Heavenly Fragrant building and leaving corpses strewn all over the place, beating up that high and mighty scum young Master Ning until he pissed his pants in terror, and in the end, even dying without a complete corpse, their hearts were truly indescribably carefree. He felt that the grievances and hatred that he had suppressed in his heart for many years could finally be released at this moment. But at this time, Lu Ruoxuan and the others actually accused Mu Yen of being cruel, accusing Mu Yen of not killing young Master Ning. Chapter 872. So much so that before Mu Yen could make a move, all the prostitutes rushed out with righteous indignation. At first, it was just cursing. Lu Ruoxuan and the others blushed and were at a loss. But Yun Xiang and the others still wanted to refute, and some even scolded them in disgust, shameless prostitutes. You've been slept with, you're no longer clean, and you don't deserve to live in this world. Finally, these prostitutes were completely enraged, and madly pounced on them, pulling their hair, tearing their clothes, and slapping their faces. Although Lu Ruoxuan and the others had high cultivation, how could they be compared to these prostitutes in terms of numbers? Moreover, the anger and despair that these prostitutes had accumulated for so long had already turned into a raging fire at this moment. Even if they burned themselves and the other party together, they didn't care. How could a few weak women resist? Mu Yen looked at the scene in front of her, shook her head, and turned to leave without any reluctance. Other people's lives, no matter the ups and downs, were not something that she could bear or control. Wei Zi looked at her back as she left, glanced at the fighting crowd, gritted her teeth, and trotted to catch up with Mu Yen. In the chaos of Heavenly Fragrance Brothel, the first to arrive was not the Ning family's reinforcements sent by Ning Yuqing, but Lu Ruoxuan's senior brother Pang Yunfei. What the hell is going on? Junior sister, how did you get so badly injured? Seeing the chaotic and bloody Heavenly Fragrance Brothel, and Lu Ruoxuan and the others with their faces full of injuries and clothes torn, Pang Feiyun's face was full of shock. He quickly took off his clothes and put them on Lu Ruoxuan. Junior sister, what happened? How did Heavenly Fragrance Brothel become like this? Lu Ruoxuan burst into tears and threw herself into Pang Feiyun's arms, sobbing as she recounted what had just happened. Pang Feiyun's face was full of heartache as he hugged Lu Ruoxuan and comforted her. Qin Shoushou, whose neck and chin were burned, watched this scene, her eyes full of jealousy and unwillingness. After that, she, who was used to being overbearing and willful, immediately stepped forward and pulled the two apart. She even took the opportunity to push Lu Ruoxuan and said to Pang Feiyun, "Senior brother, you must find that bitch for me and avenge me." Her throat was burned, and her voice was hoarse and unpleasant to hear. As he spoke, his wounds were affected, and his entire face became distorted and ugly. Pang Feiyun turned his head away in disgust and said coldly, "Don't mess around. If it weren't for your willfulness this time, Ruoxuan and the others wouldn't have fallen into such a dangerous situation and almost made us miss the sect selection. When you return this time, you better reflect on yourself. You absolutely cannot act recklessly in the future. No one is allowed to mention what happened today. If the Ning clan were to find out that they had something to do with young Master Ning's death, the entire Bright Moon sect would have to bear the consequences." After that, without looking at Qin Shoushou again, he turned around and hugged Lu Ruoxuan, comforting her in a soft voice. His expression was indescribably gentle. Seeing this, Qin Shoushou clenched her fists so tightly that the veins on the back of her hands bulged. Lu Ruoxuan snuggled in Pang Feiyun's arms and cried, "Senior brother, I really didn't mean it. At that time, I just wanted to save senior sister in a moment of desperation. Why won't that lady forgive me? Why did he have to be so cruel? Senior brother, did I do something wrong?" Chapter 873. That woman is so vicious and ruthless, her origin is unknown, and her cultivation is extremely high. Maybe she's a witch who practices some evil methods. You'd better not provoke her in the future. If you get hurt again, your senior brother will be distressed. Lu Ruoxuan nodded obediently and showed Pang Yunfei a timid smile like a little white flower. Pang Feiyun only felt that his whole heart was about to melt. Even if he had to go through fire and water for her, he would not hesitate. This little sister of his, although her cultivation was not the highest, her talent was not the highest, and even her appearance was not particularly beautiful. But there was a kind of pitiful, white lotus-like temperament that he couldn't help but want to take pity on. At the thought of that vicious woman leaving such a little sister to die, Pang Feiyun couldn't help but frown. If he had the chance to meet this woman, he must teach her a good lesson and avenge his little sister. After leaving the Heavenly Fragrance Building, Mu Yen stood among the mountains, not knowing where to go for a while. She sank her consciousness into the space and asked Little Phoenix, "Chucho, what kind of place is Xiao Bao in? Can you describe it in more detail?" Little Phoenix tilted his head and flapped his wings, trying hard to sense. After a long while, he hesitantly said, It's a very comfortable place. There's a warm air circulating in little brother's body, and then little brother will quickly become powerful. Chucho also saw an exit, but there's a barrier there. If little brother wants to go out, he will be bounced back by the barrier. That's right, Chucho also smelled that there are a lot of fragrant spirit herbs in the cave. When little brother is hungry, he will eat red fruits. There are also broken swords and beautiful swords. Oh, there's also a painting hanging on the wall. But Chucho can't see what's painted. Little Phoenix stuttered and talked for a long time. Mu Yan only knew that Xiao Bao was safe now, and his cultivation was rapidly improving, but he was trapped and couldn't get out. But with these clues alone, she couldn't find Xiao Bao's location. A cave with a barrier, where could it be? It must be some broken sect's secret territory. Qi Huang's cold voice suddenly came. Mu Yan quickly asked, "Sect's secret territory?" On the lawn not far away, a youth in red was lying lazily. Her jet-black hair covered the ground like silk, and her long eyelashes were slightly lowered, covering her glass-like eyes. The light from the sky and space fell on the young man's jade-like skin and pink and bright red lips, making his face look even more like snow. His eyebrows were like a painting, but they also looked young and immature. Hearing Mu Yan's urgent question, the young man snorted and turned his head away, refusing to answer with a tsundere face. "Qi Huang." Mu Yan called out again. Qi Huang raised his long eyelashes and glared at her. His cheeks were a little puffed up, and he looked very childish. However, the words that came out of his mouth weren't polite at all. Woman, you just offended me, and you still want me to tell you news? Dream on." Mu Yan takes a few steps forward and slaps the top of his head, messing up his silky smooth hair. "Stop messing around, quickly tell me, where is Xiao Bao?" Qi Huang rolls away from Mayan's ravaging, his peerlessly handsome face flushing red. You woman, you're really shameless. Men and women shouldn't touch each other. You're not willing to copulate with Ben Zun, yet you actually dare to make a move on Ben Zun. Chapter 874. Mayan suddenly unhurriedly says with a malicious look on her face, "Qi Huang, you kept saying that you wanted to have intercourse with me and help me resolve the yin and yang sha. In fact, you don't even know what intercourse between a man and a woman is, right?" Qi Huang's face stiffens all of a sudden, and then he explodes like thunder. You're talking nonsense. This sage is a tool spirit that has lived for tens of thousands of years. How could I not know about intercourse between a man and a woman? Believe it or not, this sage will do you on the spot right now. He looks like a cat whose tail has been stepped on, looking indescribably cute. Mayan scoffs and laughs. "All right, my pure tool spirit that has lived for tens of thousands of years, quickly tell me where that place is, okay? I'm really worried about Xiao Bao." As she speaks, Mayan has already restrained all her smile, looking at Mayan with sincerity and pleading. The girl in front of him, when she's languid and casual, is already radiant. At this time, with rapt attention, those pair of peach blossom eyes are like a bottomless pool, capable of sucking in a person's soul. Being stared at by those eyes, Chi Huang's anger and arrogance completely disappear without a trace. He unconsciously opens his mouth. In this Shojin continent, there are a few broken sects that can be considered passable. They generally have their own secret realms, and in these secret realms, there will be forbidden areas that are shielded by a barrier, just like what Little Phoenix described. These kinds of forbidden areas usually store the sect's most supreme treasures. No one will open them for a long time, but it's also usually difficult for outsiders to enter. Mayan's brows slightly wrinkle. A sect's secret realm. But there are so many sects in this Shojin continent, how can she find them? As she ponders, Mayan's expression suddenly congeals, and she lightly shouts, "Who is it?" Her divine sense has already withdrawn from the space. Looking at the direction in which the girl has disappeared, Chi Huang stares blankly for a good while, before angrily pounding the ground with his fists. Bastard, he clearly wanted to grab hold of Mayan's weakness and have her apologize to him. Why did he just say everything that he knew just now? Little Phoenix sees Chi Huang's murderous aura lingering around him, and whines, hiding far away. Boo-hoo-hoo, Lord Chi Huang is so scary. Chiu-Chiu doesn't want to be alone with Lord Chi Huang. Little big brother, Fat Bunny, when will you come back? Chiu-Chiu missed you guys so much. Mayan opens her eyes, and her sharp gaze suddenly turns towards an ancient tree not far away. Still not coming out. A moment later, a slender figure came out from behind the tree. Seeing the person, Mu Yan frowned slightly. "It's you. Why are you following me?" The person who came was the only girl that Mu Yan had saved in the Heavenly Fragrance Building, Wei Zi. Wei Zi shuffles her small steps and approaches Mayan little by little. She cautiously says, "Big sister benefactor, I want to follow you, serve you, and repay you for saving my life. Don't despise me, okay?" Mu Yan frowns even tighter. To tell the truth, she disliked this little girl who could cry very much from the bottom of her heart. The Heavenly Fragrance restaurant has already been destroyed. Why don't you return to your sect? Hearing Mayan's question, Wei Zi's tears fell again. Senior sister is the sect master's niece. I've offended senior sister, so I can't go back to the sect anymore. Chapter 875. Mu Yan originally wanted to refuse, but thinking that she really wasn't good at all kinds of trifles, and that she was completely clueless about this strange Shojin continent, she hesitated for a moment. "It's fine if you want to follow me for a while," Mu Yan said slowly, "but there's a condition, you're not allowed to cry in the future." Hearing this, Wei Zi knew that Mu Yan was willing to let her follow, and she immediately burst into a big smile. I know, I won't cry in the future." Although Wei Zi, this little girl's courage is only as big as a grain of rice, and she loves to cry. But because she naturally likes to listen to gossip, she can answer most of Mu Yan's questions. Through Wei Zi's answers, Mu Yan finally has a certain understanding of the entire Shojin continent. The Shojin continent is divided into 4 big realms: Minlu Jia, Qingtian Jia, Zhanglan Jia, and Ziyun Jia. Ziyun Jia has the highest status, and Minlu Jia is the lowest. And Mu Yan and the others are now in Minlu Jia. According to the little girl Wei Zi, the difference between Minlu Jia and Ziyun Jia is equivalent to a magnificent palace and a shabby thatched hut. Minlu Jia is the worst among the 4 realms in terms of spiritual energy purity, growth of spirit grass, and production of spiritual tools. But similarly, the higher the level of the realm, the stronger the law of the jungle, and the more serious the power struggle. Therefore, many people who are not talented enough, and whose cultivation is not high enough, will stay in Min Lu Jia to hone themselves. If one day they feel that they have enough strength, then they will go to the other 3 realms. Hearing the little girl compare Min Lu Jia to a thatched hut, Mu Yen feels deeply speechless. On this land, she can feel spiritual power between her breaths. Using spells and Shen musician skills is no longer as constrained as it was in the Yanwu continent, fearing that her spiritual power would be exhausted in a short period of time. If such a place is called a thatched hut, then what is the Yanwu continent she used to live in? A pigsty. Do you know which sects have secret realms, or places that are very comfortable, can enhance strength, and are full of spirit grass? Mu Yen roughly describes the place that Chuchu said. Wei Zi frowns and says, Miss, places that are very comfortable, can enhance strength, and full of spirit grass, must have very rich and pure spiritual energy. Such places are generally only possible in some secret realms or the sect's cultivation tower. Mu Yan's eyes brighten. Tell me. Many sects usually recruit disciples with good innate spiritual roots. In order to nurture these disciples, they need a place for them to grow and train. Therefore, these sects build cultivation pagodas specifically for their inner court disciples to cultivate and improve their cultivation. The bigger sects, as well as those famous academies, have their own secret realms. The secret territory was several times better than the cultivation pagoda, and could cultivate the most powerful elites. Naturally, only the top of the sects can to the secret realms can too. Mu Yan's eyes lit up and she quickly asked, if I want to enter these cultivation towers or secret realms, what should I do? Wei Zi was shocked and shook her head. That's impossible. There are no big sects in our Min Lu boundary. The most tyrannical one is the Ning family. But even the Ning family doesn't have the qualifications to own the cultivation tower and the mystic realm. Chapter 876. Mu Yen wasn't dismayed when she heard this. She said faintly, Min Lu Jia doesn't have it, but Azure Heaven Jia, Azure Blue Jia, one of them will have it. But if we, the people of Min Lu domain, go to the Azure Heaven domain, we will be looked down upon and bullied badly. Wei Zi said anxiously. Suddenly, she seemed to remember something and her eyes lit up. Oh right, miss, if you want to go to a big sect, there's a great opportunity right in front of you. I heard that the Azure Heaven world will hold a sect selection competition next month. In it, even the Leaf Fire sect will send people to select disciples. The Leaf Fire sect was the most prestigious sect in the Azure Heaven world. There were countless disciples in the sect, so there was a cultivation tower in the sect for the inner disciples to gain experience. They even have the right to open a secret realm with a few large sects in the Azure Blue realm. How do I participate in the sect selection tournament? Mu Yen interrupted Wei Zi. It's at the Windless Plaza at the intersection of Min Lu Domain and Blue Heaven Domain. Miss, I'll go to you. Wei Zi said excitedly. With your talent, the Leaf Fire sect will definitely choose you. If you perform well, you might even be able to become an inner disciple. Mu Yen did not immediately arrive at the Windless Square. Instead, he was stopped in a small city less than a dozen kilometers away from Windless Square. This city was called Cyan Green City, and its meaning was very simple. It was where the Cyan Green Domain and the Blue Sky Domain intersected. To enter the Blue Heaven realm from the common Green Domain, one had to obtain a travel permit from the city guard of the Turquoise City. Of course, there were naturally other ways to forcefully barge into the Blue Heaven realm. However, those who entered the Blue Heaven realm without a travel permit would be treated as unregistered residents. The practitioners of the Blue Heaven realm could kill these unregistered residents at any time and place, but they did not have to bear any responsibility. On the contrary, if they obtained the travel permit, even if they were bullied in the Blue Heaven realm, at least those cultivators would still have a sense of propriety and would not kill them. Miss, you can take a rest in this inn. Let me handle the travel permit. Wei Zi confidently patted her chest and left. Mu Yan, on the other hand, began to stroll around Verdant City with great interest. This is the first time she has seen a town in the cultivation continent, and it is the first time she has seen so many people. Although the Heavenly Fragrance brothel had a constant stream of customers, it wasn't opened in the downtown area because it was involved in human trafficking. Mu Yan was a little surprised to see the magnificent scenery of the turquoise city. Compared to the Yanwu continent, the cities and towns of the Shozhen continent aren't too different. Similar streets, similar shops, and similar pedestrians. However, there was still a difference. For example, the streets are filled with spirit beasts that are used as mounts, but they haven't even seen one in the Yanwu continent before. For example, the things sold in the shops are no longer the same as in the Yanwu continent, where they are only ordinary herbs and weapons. Instead, they are all spirit herbs and spirit tools that contain spiritual energy. Mu Yan casually walks into a restaurant and orders some food that contains spiritual power. She didn't have many crystal stones on hand, and they were all looted from the Heavenly Fragrant restaurant, but it was more than enough to eat a meal of spirit food. However, the resources in Min Lu domain were too scarce. Therefore, the spirit food sold in restaurants was usually expensive, scarce, and tasteless. Mu Yan casually tasted a few mouthfuls and stopped. At this moment, he heard the discussion of a few men. Chapter 877. Not only that, even the young master of the Ning family died tragically in the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant. I heard that not even a complete skeleton was left. That can't be. Who has eaten a bear's heart and a leopard's gall, daring to touch the Ning family's head? Don't you know that the Ning family has the final say in this Min Lu Jie? Are you lying to me? Who lied to you? Don't you know that the Ning family's kill order has been issued throughout the entire Min Lu Jie? Claiming that as long as you provide clues about the murderer, the Ning family will reward you handsomely. The table fell into silence for a moment. After a long while, someone said, "Who is so powerful that they even dare to offend the Ning family? And they haven't been caught yet. Could it be someone from the Blue Heaven realm? Why would someone from the Blue Heaven realm come to our Min Lu Jie? There's no need to lay hands on the Ning family. I heard that the Ning family pays tribute to the big sects of the Blue Heaven realm every year. The Ning family has laid out an inescapable net. I'm afraid that person won't be able to escape even if he has wings." Listening to everyone's discussion, Mayan chuckled, paid the bill and left. She didn't notice that on the second floor of the restaurant, there was a pair of eyes hiding in the shadows, staring at her departing back. Until Mayan completely disappeared, Chen Xiuxiu's figure came out from behind the screen on the second floor. That slut is still alive. Are the Ning family's people all trash? It's been so long, yet they still haven't killed that slut. Chen Xiuxiu looked at Pang Feiyun and gritted her teeth. "Senior brother, you must help me kill that slut. It's all because of her that I became like this." Although the burn wound on Chen Xiuxiu's chin has healed, the scar hasn't disappeared. Her originally beautiful face has become ugly because of this scar. How could she not hate it? Pang Feiyun frowned. "In a few days, we will go to Windless Square to participate in the sect selection. It's best not to complicate matters at this time." "Senior brother, how can you be like this?" Chen Xiuxiu shouted angrily. "You see, I was harmed by that slut like this, yet you don't want to avenge me. If it was Lu Ruoxuan who was burned today, wouldn't you have eagerly gone to avenge her?" Pang Feiyun's expression changed. He carefully and nervously looked at Lu Ruoxuan. Lu Ruoxuan was as timid as a little white flower, not knowing what to do. After a long while, he said, "Senior sister, it's not that senior brother doesn't want to help you, but the sect selection is really important to us. Senior sis, you also want to enter the Leaf Fire sect, right? Although I also think that the young lady did something wrong, it would not be worth it if she delayed the selection because of revenge. Chen Xiuxiu said fiercely, you want me to just let it go like this? Lu Ruoxuan bit her lips, although eldest young Master Ning was in the wrong first, but that girl actually killed eldest young Master Ning, not even leaving his corpse intact. That is too cruel and merciless. Why don't we tell the Ning family about this girl's whereabouts? The Ning family's patriarch has lost his son, and he can't find the murderer. It's really too pitiful. Pang Feiyun nodded repeatedly. Jean is right. As long as we tell the Ning family about her, they will naturally seek revenge on her. We don't even need to do anything. Chapter 878. Lu Ruoxuan shows a hesitant and unbearable expression, not speaking for a long time. Chen Xiuxiu anxiously says, didn't you see what that woman did to me? If I don't make her pay the price, how can I be satisfied? Lu Ruoxuan takes a look at Chen Xiuxiu's injuries, and seems to have made up her mind. In fact, I saw that girl called Wei Zi with her, and they even agreed on a place to meet. Moreover, senior sister, you also know that my spiritual power is very special. Although I can't track that girl, I could track Wei Zi, but Wei Zi is innocent. If I report this to the Ning family, will Wei Zi also be implicated? Innocent my ass. That little slut is also not a good thing, she deserved to die. Chen Xiuxiu's eyes light up when she hears Lu Ruoxuan's words, let's go, we'll go report to the Ning family now. Who knows, the Ning family might even give us great benefits. Lu Ruoxuan looks at Pang Yunfei in panic, her eyes brimming with tears, senior brother, I don't want to harm innocent people. But senior sister is really pitiful. That girl, she really went too far. Don't cry. Pang Yunfei carefully and gently wipes away the tears on her face. Senior brother's heart is about to be broken by your tears. These things have nothing to do with you. Even if those two people were killed by the Ning family, they only have themselves to blame. It has nothing to do with you. Be good, don't cry, you won't be pretty if you cry again. Lu Ruoxuan smiles through her tears and keeps up with Chen Xiuxiu's pace. On the other side, Mayan is strolling on the street, waiting for the appointed time with Wei Zi. Soon, a bookstore appears in her line of sight. Mayan has heard the little girl Wei Zi mention it. In the Shuzhen continent, most of the ancient books are recorded in jade slips. But because of the scarcity of resources in Minlujia, ordinary books are still the main ones. Usually, the food that the residents of Minlujia eat is also ordinary food without spiritual power, and not spiritual food cooked by spirit chefs. Mayan is very curious about what kind of books are sold in the bookstore of the Shuzhen continent. She can't help but curiously walk in and randomly find a book in the corner. However, before she could read it, she was struck by lightning when she saw the title of the book. The words, Emperor, I'm pregnant with your child, were written on it. What the hell is going on? Mu Yan took another book, The 2 or 3 Things I Have to Say to Gongzi Yun Shao. Those years when young Master Yun Shao pursued me, abusing your majesty, you are addicted to spoiling me. The corners of Mu Yan's mouth twitches uncontrollably. She felt that there was a lack of oxygen in her brain. What were the brains of the people of the cultivation continent? No one knew who this young Master Yun Shao was, to actually have an affair with so many female cultivators. And that Di Jun, why does he always remind her of Di Mingju? Mu Yan shuddered and promptly threw away the book in her hand. She turned around and walked towards another bookshelf. The books on this shelf were much more normal. They were all Water Spirit Root Basic Cultivation Method and Fire and Wood Dual Spirit Roots Coexistence. Mu Yan randomly picks up a book related to the water spirit root. Just as he was about to flip through the book, he suddenly heard a burst of laughter not too far away. She raised her head in surprise and saw that a young man had appeared where she had been standing a moment ago. Chapter 879. At this time, he's holding the book Those Years Yun Shao Gongzi Pursued Me that Mu Yan had just read, laughing until he falls down. He keeps muttering, I really didn't expect that there's such a romantic affair, ha 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 ha. If I take it back and let my senior brothers see it, they'll definitely laugh themselves to death, ha 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 ha. The laughter is so loud that even the shopkeeper comes over. The youth covers his mouth, showing a cute apologetic expression. The shopkeeper unconsciously becomes lenient towards such a crystal-clear youth. After instructing him not to disturb other people, he leaves. The youth covers his mouth, laughing until his whole body trembles as he continues to read. Mu Yan no longer pays attention to him, looking at the water spell cultivation in her hands. This kind of cultivation technique that could be put up for sale outside was naturally not worth much. The heart sutras and techniques described inside are all common in the Xiuzhen continent, everyone knows them. But for Mu Yan, it's a pleasant surprise. Her current spiritual root is the water spiritual root, and her body is also full of water spiritual power. But in fact, she still doesn't know much about how to use spiritual power and spells to fight. Usually, she would directly use the Tian Mo Qin to kill the other party. As the heart sutras and explanations in the book come into her mind, Mu Yan's empty hand unconsciously starts to condense a water ball in the air. Under the control of her mental power, the water ball constantly changes shape. At first, she can only enlarge and shrink, but later, she can even directly manipulate the water ball into the shape of an incomparably delicate animal. Amazing! An exclamation comes from the side, interrupting Mu Yan. She looks up and sees the cute youth who just fell down laughing, staring unblinkingly at the rabbit condensed from the water ball in her hand. The big eyes of Pai Ka are shining, and he can't help but reach out to poke the water rabbit. Apart from Xiao Shishu, I've never seen anyone who can manipulate water spiritual power like this. You're so amazing. Mu Yan smiles, and with a flip of her hand, the fat rabbit that she's transformed from water spiritual power disappears without a trace. She turns to the shopkeeper and says, I want to buy this book. Leaving the bookstore, the sun is already in the west, and it's almost time for the appointment with Wei Zi. Mu Yan is rushing to the appointed place. Suddenly, her footsteps stop, her face slightly congealing, and she turns into an alley. After a moment, a group of people hurriedly catch up, looking around. Where is she? I clearly saw this woman come in. If we can't catch this woman this time, we'll be in deep trouble. Just then, a melodious voice sounded from above the roof. Is there something you need from me? The few of them were startled. Just as he was about to raise his head to take a look, a strong gust of wind blew in his face. The next moment, they felt intense pain all over their bodies and fell to the ground, unable to get up. Countless small wounds appeared on their bodies, and blood only flowed out after a while. However, they didn't even know what had injured them. Easily disposing of these people, Mayan's expression doesn't relax in the slightest. Instead, her brows are tightly knitted. She quickly arrived at the place where she had agreed to meet Wei Zi. However, as time passed, Wei Zi still did not appear. A cold glint flashed across her eyes. It seemed that his whereabouts had finally been targeted by the Ning clan. Chapter 880. Sure enough, not long after, a middle-aged man with a short beard slowly walked over. When he saw her, he didn't shout to kill her. Instead, he bowed slightly and said, I am the housekeeper of the Ning mansion, Ning Hai. May I ask for your great name and your background? Mayan narrows her eyes at her. Did you guys capture Wei Zi? How can you call it capturing? Ning Hai smiled like a Mithra Buddha. My master just admires you and wants to invite you to visit. Miss, please. Mayan's eyes flash. The Ning family steward's attitude was really strange. Even though he knew that she had killed young Master Ning, he still politely invited her to have a seat. Even though it was an invitation, it was actually a threat using Wei Zi. But wasn't this attitude a little too friendly? She was a little curious about what the Ning family was doing. The Ning family's residence was in the Big Dipper city, which was not far from Verdant City. It was said to be a city, but in fact, there was nothing else in the entire Big Dipper city except the power of the Ning family. From this, one could imagine how powerful the Ning family was in Minlujia. In the living room of the Ning family's main residence, Wei Zi cowered in a corner in fear. From time to time, she would glance at the man not far away. This man was called Ning Zongxiang, and it could be said that everyone in Minlujia knew him. Because he was Ning Yuqing's father and also the Ning clan master. Logically speaking, Ning Zongxiang should be in his early 50s. But judging from his appearance, he was only a few years older than Ning Yuqing. Moreover, he was tall and handsome, exuding a mature and attractive charm from head to toe. Wei Zi had also heard that many women in Minlu domain had fallen in love with Ning Zongxiang at first sight and wished they could climb into his bed. Even if she was only a concubine, it did not matter. Not only because of his status, but also because of the charm he exuded, which was intoxicating. On the other hand, even though Ning Yuqing was the young master of the Ning clan, many people sneered at him. Compared to Ning Zongxiang, Ning Yuqing was at most a pile of trash, even if he was Ning Zongxiang's son. Wei Zi secretly glanced at Ning Zongxiang from the corner of her eyes. He was sitting on the main seat with a cup of tea in his hand. His casual movements exuded a graceful and noble aura. His appearance, in particular, could not be considered unparalleled handsome, but his eyes were deep. Even though there were many fine lines at the corners of his eyes, he still had an intoxicating charm. However, Wei Zi didn't know why, but when she saw this man, she didn't blush at all. Her heart was filled with fear and self-blame. She knew that Miss had killed young Master Ning, and the Ning family would not let her off. Unfortunately, he was so useless. Not only could he not help the young Miss, but he was also taken hostage by the Ning family. Tears welled up in her eyes, ready to fall at any moment. Just at this moment, Ning Hai led a beautiful girl in a white dress and slowly walked in. The moment she saw the person, Wei Zi forgot all the fear in her heart and pounced on her while crying, Miss, why did you come? Hurry up and leave. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. Boo-hoo. Mu Yan smacked Wei Zi's forehead. Do you still remember what you promised me? I won't cry anymore. Wei Zi fiercely choked, desperately holding back her tears. She looked at Mu Yan with guilt and dependence, and followed behind her. But Mu Yan's gaze fell on Ning Zongxiang, her eyes narrowed. Chapter 881. He should have reached the 9th stage of abstinence, or even higher, the great perfection of half-step gold core. Mu Yan is looking at Ning Zongxiang, but Ning Zongxiang's eyes are almost focused on her. The calmness in his eyes is instantly replaced by amazement and desire. Miss June, please sit down. Ning Zongxiang waves his hand, his tone gentle. Mu Yan is not surprised that Ning Zongxiang knows her name. Wei Zi, this little white rabbit, has been caught for a long time. She might have already said what she should not have said. But Mu Yan doesn't care, because no one here knows her real secret. Ning Zongxiang looks at Mu Yan from head to toe, his eyes burning. That naked greedy look is exactly the same as his dead son Ning Yuqing, making Mu Yan very unhappy. She can't wait to dig his eyes out. But Ning Zongxiang's eyes are presumptuous, but his tone is still gentle and appropriate. Miss June, a few days ago, the person who made a ruckus in Tianxiang restaurant and killed my son, was it you? Even though he was speaking in a gentle tone, Wei Zi shivered for no reason. Mu Yan doesn't care and smiles, so what if I was? Ning Zongxiang's face darkens, his voice turns cold. Miss June, don't you know that it is my Ning family's property, and Ning Yuqing is my son? Miss June is so presumptuous, do you not put my Ning family in your eyes? Ah, isn't it the young master of the Ning family who is presumptuous? If he didn't provoke me and want to use me as a furnace, I wouldn't have done anything. Mu Yan slowly picks up a cup of tea next to her, takes a sip, then says casually, I have always followed a principle, if people don't offend me, I won't offend them, but if people offend me, I will cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Since young Master Ning dares to provoke me, then he should be prepared to die. The girl slowly raises her head as she speaks. Her peach blossom eyes meet Ning Zongxiang's eyes. Ning Zongxiang only feels his heart skip a beat, faintly feeling that those eyes are frighteningly deep. But very quickly, an even stronger emotion surges in his heart. That is desire. He has been famous for so many years, in Minlujia, there is almost nothing he can't get. But he had never desired a woman as much as he did now. Ning Zongxiang slowly exhales, standing up from his seat. Miss June should have heard this saying, a wise man submits to circumstances. Hitting a rock with an egg won't end well. Or does Miss June think that she alone can contend against the entire Ning family? Step by step, he walks down the stairs and stands in front of Mayan. The tall figure enveloped the petite girl. The closer he looked, the more he could see the girl's stunning appearance and snow-white skin. Ning Zongxiang felt as if there was a warm current surging in his body, and he couldn't wait to immediately pull her into his arms and wantonly love her. He could even feel that his old and silent heart was beating like a young boy at this moment. If he could get his hands on such a stunning beauty, so what if he lost Ning Yuqing's useless son? Moreover, this stunningly beautiful woman did not only have her beauty as a treasure. Ning Zongxiang took a deep breath. His tone was gentle but also threatening. However, the conflict between Miss June and the Heavenly Fragrance House was, after all, the fault of our Ning family. Chapter 882. Hearing Ning Zongxiang's words, Ning Hai and his subordinate standing at the side all show a shocked expression. Even Wei Zi widens her eyes, revealing a pleasantly surprised expression. She originally thought that the Ning family would definitely shout to kill the young lady who killed the Ning family's eldest young master. Unexpectedly, the Ning family's master is willing to let this matter go. That's really great. Only Mayan's expression remains unchanged. She even casually adjusts her sitting posture, saying more and more carelessly, oh. Then, may I ask what price Ning family wants me to pay? I want you to marry into the Ning family and become my, Ning Zongxiang's seventh wife. Ning Zongxiang stares at Mayan with turbid eyes and says without hesitation. Hearing Ning Zongxiang's words, Ning Hai and the others are completely dumbfounded. What kind of punishment is this? This is simply a reward. One must know that in Minlujia, there are many people who want to marry Ning Zongxiang. Not to mention being the seventh wife, even as a concubine, a maid, or even a furnace, there would be a lot of people scrambling like ducks. But this woman clearly killed the eldest young master, and the master actually wants to marry her as the seventh wife. Master, how can this be? Ning Hai anxiously shouts, this person's origin is unknown, and she is also the murderer who killed the eldest young master. If she becomes the seventh wife, the eldest madam will never agree. Ning Zongxiang sneers, his sharp eyes suddenly look at Ning Hai. Ning Hai's voice suddenly stops, and he shrinks his neck and retreats. In the Ning family, Ning Zongxiang is the absolute master. His words are equivalent to an imperial edict, and no one dares to disobey. Ning Hai was too shocked just now, so he couldn't help but speak up. But now that he has recovered, he is drenched in cold sweat. But when he looks at Mayan, his gaze is filled with shock and envy. He didn't expect that this woman would actually gain a blessing in disguise, gaining the master's favor and becoming one of the Ning family's hostesses. Mayan is also thunderstruck by Ning Zongxiang's request, and can't come back to her senses for a long time. Especially when she finds out that the people around her, including Wei Zi, are looking at her with envious eyes. Mayan is simply speechless. But, without waiting for her to speak, outside the door, a woman with a head full of hairpins and a jade dress bursts in. As soon as she sees Mayan, she screams and pounces, "Slut, you killed my son, and you still want to seduce my husband. Shameless little whore, I'll kill you right now." However, before she can get close to Mayan, Ning Zongxiang had already lifted his leg and kicked the woman in the stomach, sending her flying several meters away. The impatience and coldness on his face were about to overflow. "Impudent! You actually dare to shout about killing me in front of me? Do you have any respect for me, the patriarch? I'm warning you, you better know your place. Don't think that I won't do anything to you just because you're the first madam. If you dare to be presumptuous again, don't blame me for directly dismissing you and kicking you out of the house." The body of the woman who was kicked twitched for a moment, then she cried sadly. At the same time, he looks at Mayan with a venomous gaze, as if he can't wait to rush over and tear her apart. After teaching the woman a lesson, Ning Zongxiang promptly and gently looks at Mayan. "You weren't frightened, were you?" As he spoke, he reached out to touch her face, his face full of concern and heartache. Mu Yan looks at his behavior, but she's so disgusted that she's about to vomit. Chapter 883. Sure enough, if the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. If the son is an animal, then the father must also be inferior to an animal. The entire living room fell into a deathly silence. Even the first madam's crying stopped. Ning Hai and the other Ning family servants looked at Mu Yan in shock, then at Ning Zongxiang, not daring to breathe. Ning Zongxiang's face changed from gentle and loving, little by little, to ferocious and angry. Say it again if you have the guts. Say it again. Which one are you talking about? Say that you and your son are both shameless pigs. Or that you are inferior to an animal. Mu Yan smiled faintly. "Whatever you want to hear, I can say it for you. Bitch, you're courting death." Ning Zongxiang finally couldn't bear it anymore. The spiritual power in his hand suddenly condensed into a fireball, fiercely attacking Mu Yan. This was the Ning family's raging flame fist. Ning Yuqing had also used it. But compared to Ning Yuqing's raging flame fist, Ning Zongxiang's raging flame fist was a real, unstoppable fire. Mu Yan's retreat was already very fast. She immediately used her water spiritual power to block the fire attack. But the water spiritual power she condensed was instantly evaporated by the fire. Her clothes and hair were also burnt by the flames. "Miss!" Wei Zi screamed and wanted to rush over, but Ning Hai ordered people to stop her. Wei Zi cried, "Miss, are you okay?" At the same time, dozens of Ning family's elites rush in from outside and surround Mu Yan. These people were all above the 8th rank of body refining, and some of their leaders had even reached the 3rd rank of Anidia. Mu Yan glanced at the burned holes in her clothes, then stroked her hair and looked at Ning Zongxiang expressionlessly. Ning Zongxiang had already calmed down. The fierce anger on his face disappeared, replaced by a high and mighty calmness. "Jun Mu Yan, your talent is indeed first class, but if you want to fight me, it's like an ant trying to shake a tree. you have no chance of winning. Moreover, this is my Ning family, everyone inside and out are my people. Do you think you can still run away if you disobey me? Mu Yan unhurriedly pulls away the burnt hair on her head, then she looks at Ning Zongxiang and says, "You want to keep me, but it's not just to marry me as the seventh foreign, right?" Ning Zongxiang's pupils contracted. Mu Yan chuckled. With a flip of her hand, an unremarkable old zither appeared in her hand. "You want my zither?" Seeing the zither appear out of thin air, Ning Zongxiang's eyes were practically burning with flames. Indeed, after learning that his son had been killed, Ning Zongxiang was extremely furious and wanted to tear the murderer into pieces. In Ning Zongxiang's eyes, Ning Yuqing was just a stupid pig, but he was still his own son, and his talent was not bad. Ning Zongxiang spent a lot of resources to train Ning Yuqing, and planned to send him to participate in the sect selection. If they could enter a large sect like the Leaf Fire sect, the Ning family might be able to rise another level. He never thought that the son he had painstakingly raised would be killed by a woman. How could Ning Zongxiang not hate him? However, very quickly, he heard the accounts of the surviving guards in the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant. That woman's cultivation level was only at the 9th rank of body refining, but she was able to beat the guards and the 7th rank Inidia young Master Ning to the point that they were unable to fight back. Chapter 884. The Zither's attack was hard to defend against, and it was very powerful. It might even be a 4th-grade spirit weapon or above. Furthermore, the Heavenly Fragrance Brothel's madam had said that the girl's water spiritual roots were extremely pure. Her looks were even more outstanding. Ning Zongxiang had checked Ning Yuqing's corpse, and indeed found that his body had remnant water spiritual energy. It was extremely serene. It was probably the best cauldron for him to cultivate his fire spiritual energy. Because of these discoveries, Ning Zongxiang didn't want to kill Mu Yan. Instead, he wanted to take her into his boudoir and make her his wife and concubine. Hearing Mu Yan reveal his motive, Ning Zongxiang was not annoyed at all. Instead, he laughed wantonly and said, "Miss June should know that this world follows the law of the jungle. A treasure is a treasure in the hands of the strong, but in the hands of the weak, it is a lethal weapon." Mu Yan gently plucked the zither strings without saying a word. Ning Zongxiang sighed lightly and said, "If Miss June really does not wish to be my 7th wife, I will naturally not force you. As long as Miss June is willing to hand over the zither and teach me how to use it, the grudge between you and the Ning family will be ridden off. How about it?" Mu Yan raised her eyebrows without saying a word. Wei Zi said excitedly, "Miss, that's great. The Ning family's head will not force you." Wei Zi was really worried that the Ning family would seek revenge on Mu Yan. She also believed that with Mu Yan's strength alone, it was impossible for her to fight against the huge Ning family. Hearing that Ning Zongxiang wanted to marry Mu Yan as his 7th wife, although Wei Zi subconsciously felt that it was inappropriate, she still hoped that Mu Yan could keep her life. Now, Ning Zongxiang was willing to not force Mu Yan, as long as she handed over the zither. Wei Zi felt that this was the best outcome. Ning Zongxiang's smile became even more elegant. He slowly walked towards Mu Yan and looked at her deeply. "I heard that Miss June wants to go to the Azure Heaven Realm to participate in the sect selection tournament. Does Miss June not know that in this Min Lu world, it is up to my Ning family to obtain a travel permit? As long as Miss June is willing to follow me, I can guarantee that you will at least become an outer disciple of the Leaf Fire sect. How about it?" Because of the 3 words, Leaf Fire sect, Mayan looked up at him. Ning Zongxiang, however, thought that she had finally loosened up. Moving even closer, he deliberately lowered his voice and sweetly said, "I admit that I fell in love with Miss June at first sight. But I, Ning, have never done things that are difficult for others. I only hope that Miss June can stay by my side for a period of time, teach me how to use the zither, and at the same time increase her understanding of me. Perhaps Miss June will change her mind at that time. Seeing Ning Zongxiang's gentleness towards Mu Yan, First Madam trembled with anger. She gritted her teeth and muttered, "Slut. You'll die a horrible death. You killed my son. You seduced my husband. I'll make sure you die a horrible death." Mu Yan sees Ning Zongxiang's affectionate look, thinking that his charm is boundless. She is so disgusted that she wants to vomit. She laughed mockingly and said, "Did I say that I would hand over my zither? You're just flattering yourself and saying a bunch of nonsense." Ning Zongxiang's face darkened. His eyes flashed with a cold killing intent. "I advise you not to refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. My patience is limited." "That's just right." Mu Yan's figure floated backwards. Chapter 885. A divine hand weaves the heavens, covering Wei Zi like a net. She looks at Ning Zongxiang and sneers, "It's just as well, my patience is also limited." As soon as her voice falls, her fingers are already strumming the zither strings. The sound blade turns into a sky full of flying swords. Ning Zongxiang's expression turns cold, and his evaluation of Mayan and the zither rises a few notches. But his footsteps are neither fast nor slow. His figure moves like a phantom, avoiding all the sound blades in a split second. But the others in the hall are not so lucky. The sound blade that Mayan launches this time is an indiscriminate attack from all directions. The sound blade flies as fast as lightning, simply unavoidable. Ning Hai and the others don't have time to react. They feel a sharp pain all over their body, and blood is already flowing out of their bodies. Even the First Madam, who is lying on the ground, has her head grazed by the sound blade. Her hair and scalp are shaved off, and she screams like a pig being butchered. Mayan slowly twirls her fingers, stopping the sound of the zither. She chuckles, "Master Ning's cultivation is really good. It seems that this move can't kill you. A little girl like you wants to kill me." Ning Zongxiang looks like he's heard the funniest joke. He throws his head back and laughs, "Little girl, you weren't even born when this old man moved unhindered in Min Lu Jia. Since you don't know what's good for you, then I'll let you see what a real expert is." Although he's smiling, this time, the smile doesn't reach his eyes at all. Instead, it's a wanton chill. It's clear that he really wants to kill this time. As soon as his voice falls, Ning Zongxiang's whole body has already soared up. Almost at the same time, the entire hall seems to be burning with a blazing flame. The furniture in the hall is just ordinary mahogany, and under such high temperature, they spontaneously combusted and destroyed. Ning Hai and the others were originally injured by Mayan's sound blade, but they were only in pain, anger, and hatred. But now, their faces are full of fear, and they scramble to escape. "Oh no, the master is angry, quick, we need to run, that slut is courting death, daring to make the master angry. It's fine if she can't live, but don't let us die with her." In the Ning family, everyone knew not to anger the family head. Because the patriarch had cultivated the blazing flame art to perfection, once he used it with his full strength, the scorching waves of fire would be uncontrollable. The people around him, and even the entire Ning family, would be affected. Ning Hai and the others escaped, but First Madam was a step too slow. In a split second, her hair and clothes started to burn. "Help! Help! Master, save me, save me!" She had no time to escape, so she could only desperately crawl towards Ning Zongxiang and reach out to him. "Master, I've been with you for decades and given birth to your children. Please save me. I don't want to die." Lady Wang wanted to hug Ning Zongxiang's thigh, but Ning Zongxiang kicked her away again. In the blink of an eye, the flames had completely engulfed Madame Wang. She let out a blood-curdling scream and was completely engulfed. Mu Yen looked at this scene coldly. In her heart, she had a new understanding of Ning Zongxiang's cold-blooded shamelessness. He could casually burn his wife who had been by his side for decades. This kind of person isn't just cold-hearted, he's simply inhuman. But Ning Zongxiang's strength is indeed formidable. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.